What's up, nieces and nephews? Welcome back to Big Money from a Small Handyman Services Business, episode 5. Let's talk about money. And let's talk about the most debated subject when it comes to money as being a handyman. Should I charge hourly or should I charge by the job? Okay, I'm going to give you my thoughts and we're going to talk about the pros and the cons of both. And then you make your decision and let me know what you think, right? Obviously, this is one man's opinion and one man's thought about the whole situation. Let me know what you think. Okay, I think that charging by the hour is best done when you are first starting. The reason for that is you can adjust your rate if you don't have a lot of experience to be reasonably low within, reason, and you're able to gain experience while you're making some money. Now, if a customer is willing to pay you by the hour, that's typically a low value customer, a low value client, and we'll talk more about that. But what I mean by that is that those are customers who are looking to save money, right? They just want to pay you for however long it is that it takes you to do something. If something takes you 30 minutes, believe me, they're not going to want to pay you for the hour. If you agree on $20 an hour and it takes you 30 minutes or even 40 minutes, guess who's going to split that difference of 10 minutes? You're going to have to give in. They're going to want to pay you for 30 minutes or they're going to want to give you $10. If you're gaining experience, that's a great way to gain experience. The problem with hourly, the way that I see it is once you get some decent experience under your belt, and specifically you get very efficient at certain types of jobs or certain type of tasks, is that it becomes a conflict of interest. What I mean by that is, for example, it takes me about 45 minutes to mount the TV in the wall with wires inside the wall, with an outlet back there, connected, everything ran on the inside and everything hung and secure, whether there are whether there are studs behind the drywall or not. About 45 minutes to an hour flat, I can get that done. Does it behoove me to charge by the hour? Absolutely not, because I do it too quickly. Now, the conflict of interest falls into play. Why? Because when you agree to do something by the hour, then what ends up happening is that the customer wants to pay as little as possible to get that work done, and you want to make as much as possible while you're doing that work. That's where the conflict of interest comes into play. Now, again, I may be wrong, and there are other people who just, in their mind, they set an hourly rate, and they're like, this is going to take me 8 hours to do this, and I charge $50 per hour. So 50 times 8, that's what I'm going to give the customer. And that's how they value their time. That's how they set their services. And that's cool. You're still giving them a total, right? Now, you internally are still calculating by hour, but you're giving the customer a full actual rate. So if you miscalculate, that's on you, right? Now, there's people who work it differently. They'll be like, I charge $50 per hour, and I'm just using $50 as an example, and it's going to take me 8 hours. And then if it takes them longer than that, they're going to be like, hey, listen, it's going to take me another 2 or 3 hours, blah, blah, blah. And so it's going to be another $150 if that's what they charge, right? And then they'll come to that agreement, and that's fine. I personally am of the thought process or of the mindset of charging by the job. Why? Because I'm able to very accurately calculate how long something's going to take me, and I'm very efficient at what I do. So somebody who's been doing the job long enough like me, I don't really charge based on my time. I charge for my experience. Once you get to a certain level where you're doing things quickly and efficiently, I'm no longer being paid by the hour. I'm being paid by my experience, because experience equals efficiency. So I charge by the job. Now, the downside to that is if I miscalculate and something goes wrong, that's on me. Now, obviously, there are different situations. So, for example, if I give somebody an estimate on, I don't know, whatever, changing drywall, ripping out drywall and putting a new one in, if I miscalculate that there's things that are rotted in there, and I'm gonna have to change, studs in the wall, blah blah blah, and I didn't think about that ahead of time. That's gonna, cut into my profits because it's gonna take me longer. However, I've learned through experience to, when I'm in those situations beforehand, I always set the expectation ahead of time. I'm like, listen, I'm gonna remodel this bathroom for you. That's a perfect example. I'm gonna remodel this bathroom for you. I'm gonna tear down the walls. Right, I'm going to tear down the tile, tear down it's probably green board, right? That's there, and this is my price. I don't know what I'm going to find once I'm in there. So if there's termite damage, if there is moisture damage on the other side of the drywall, or the other side of the wall, which is typically drywall, changing that out, that's going to be extra because I don't know what I'm going to run into. However, be honest and upfront from the beginning and communicate that. I tend to budget, and I always include materials. So budget how much materials are going to be. And then I include about 10 to 15% more because there's always unforeseen things. And I don't want to tell the customer I had to spend more on materials, and I definitely don't want it to eat in my profit either. So I don't want to have either one of those situations. And if I'm going to tear down that bathroom to remodel it, I'm also going to anticipate that I'm going to have moisture damage issues in there, that I'm going to have to change those studs, and that all of that is already baked into my price. Because I do not believe in giving a customer a price and then getting into something and not being able to cover that and have to tell them that it's going to be another $200 or $300. That does not look good. Now, that being said, there are obviously situations that are unforeseen that I have to talk to a customer and say, hey, listen, this is outside of the scope of work that I quoted you. It was completely unforeseen. And, this is going to come, it's going to be X amount more. What I advise you to do in those situations is take the customer, show them what's going on, let them know that this was unforeseen. Be prepared with a solution before you even talk about charging them more for the work. Present all of that. Present the problem, present the solution, let them know it was outside of the scope of work. Hopefully you're running a legal business like we talked about before, and you have contracts out for big work like that. So you signed it and I signed, and we all know. And then let them know, hey, this is outside of the scope of work. This is going to be another $2,000. For some reason, it's easier on the customer to talk about an additional $2,000 than it is to talk about an additional $150. One of them makes you look like a jerk and the other one doesn't. Because if we're just talking about a difference of $150, $250, and you're going to bill that to the customer an additional to whatever it is that you just did, that doesn't look good, man. So don't do it. I bake all of that in. So again, from my experience, if I was starting out today, the advice that I would give myself is, listen, if you're just going to get started and you don't have much experience, charge by the hour. Set the expectation, that you don't have a lot of experience, but I can definitely clean your gutters. And, I charge $25 an hour for that with a 1 hour minimum. Because if you do it in 30 minutes, they're going to want to pay you 50% of your hourly rate. So set the expectation that you have a 1 hour minimum or whatever, hour and a half, 2 hours. You decide whatever works for you, whatever is, you guys can agree on, and get that experience that way. You're going to quickly find that you start to feel like, hey, I do this so quickly that, it's not worth it for me, and I don't want to work slower just so I can make more money. And that's where the conflict of interest comes into play. So once you get enough experience, then when you have enough experience that you're able to say, this is going to take me an hour, it's going to take me 3 hours, it's going to take me 2 days, whatever the case is, whether you choose to say this is going to take me 2 days, so that's 16 hours and I charge $50 an hour, or whatever the case is, do that math and present it to that customer. I don't know that there's a right or a wrong. I just know that from a business perspective, one doesn't make sense to me and the other one does. So let me know, guys, what you think. I hope that this made sense, and I'll see you on the next one.